From the darkest reaches of space to the deepest corners of your mind. Welcome to From the Void.
October 18th, 1970, Burke, Virginia. Air Force Cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée are sitting in their car on a quiet road near a new housing development. It's late, dark, isolated. They're talking, maybe listening to music, when suddenly, a figure appears in the darkness. A man, wearing a white bunny suit. He approaches the car, raises a hatchet, and smashes the front passenger window. Then he shouts, "You're on private property. I've got your tag number." And just as fast as he appeared, he's gone. Disappears into the woods. Bennett drives straight to the police. They file a report. Officers inspect the car, and yes, the glass is shattered. The weapon? A small axe. The description? A man in a full-body rabbit costume. No suspect is found, but that's not the end of it. Because 10 days later, he comes back, and that's when the legend begins. This is From the Void, and I'm John Williamson. Today, we're exploring one of the strangest, most persistent urban legends in America. A story that starts with real police reports and spirals into a folklore phenomenon. A man in a bunny costume, a hatchet, a bridge, and a terrifying question. Who was the Bunnyman? Burke, Virginia sits outside of Washington, D.C., a typical American suburb. Quiet neighborhoods, commuter roads, and by the 1970s, a growing population of military families, civil servants, and middle-class homeowners. That's why the police took Robert Bennett's report seriously. He wasn't drunk, wasn't a teenager making up stories. He was a military cadet, and he was scared. According to the police file dated October 18th, 1970, Bennett and his fiancée had parked near Guinea Road, close to a partially built subdivision. They said a man dressed in what appeared to be a full white rabbit suit emerged from the brush. He ran toward the car, shouted at them, and swung a hatchet through the window. The attacker never struck the couple, but the message was clear. Leave. Police searched the area. They found shattered glass, tire tracks, and a possible trail into the woods. But no footprints, no suspect, no weapon, and no obvious motive. Bennett described the man as white, possibly in his early 20s, and wearing a white hood or costume with long bunny ears sewn to the top. He also said the figure seemed agitated, maybe even delusional. At this point, it's just a strange assault. But then 10 days later, it happens again. On October 29th, Paul Phillips, a private security guard, was patrolling a new construction site not far from the first attack. That's when he saw him. A man wearing a bunny outfit. This time described as gray and white, standing on the porch of a half-built house. Phillips watched as the man began chopping at a support beam with a hatchet, shouting angrily, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm gonna bust you on the head." Phillips called the police, but once again, the figure disappeared. No car, no tracks, no blood, just hacked up wood and another shaken witness. Within a few weeks, more than 50 sightings had been reported. Some credible, others clearly copycats or urban hysteria. Fairfax County Police issued a statement asking residents not to visit the area, especially Colchester Overpass, a narrow, eerie bridge just outside Clifton that quickly became the epicenter of the growing Bunnyman myth. To this day, most locals simply call it Bunnyman Bridge. After those two 1970 incidents, the original attacker was never caught. His identity never confirmed, and no other credible sightings followed. But the story didn't die. It evolved, it mutated. After the break, we'll trace how a real crime turned into a modern myth, complete with ghost stories, mutilated teenagers, and rituals performed under the bridge at midnight. Because if the Bunnyman was just a man, why does he still haunt Fairfax County over 50 years later? You'd think a man in a rabbit costume wielding a hatchet would be the strangest part of this story, but it gets stranger. Because even though the Fairfax County police closed the case without a suspect, the public didn't let it go. Over the next few years, a quiet local incident turned into a bona fide urban legend. A campfire tale passed between kids, teenagers, and late-night thrill seekers. And like all good legends, it grew teeth. By the late 1970s, the Bunnyman wasn't just an angry man in a costume. He was a phantom, a killer, a cursed spirit tied to a specific location, the now infamous Bunnyman Bridge. The legend claimed that decades earlier, a prison transport bus crashed en route to an asylum in the area. All the inmates were recaptured, except one. He supposedly took refuge in the woods, surviving off of small animals, rabbits, which he killed, mutilated, and hung from trees. Eventually, the locals found him, but before they could catch him, he ran towards the Colchester overpass, and he was struck by a train. His body was never recovered. From then on, they say, he haunted the bridge. As the legend grew, so did the details. In some versions, the Bunnyman appears only on Halloween night, targeting teens who dare to trespass under the bridge after midnight. In others, if you say his name 3 times under the overpass, like a rural version of Bloody Mary, he'll appear and slaughter you with a hatchet. Some stories go even further. Teenagers found hanged from the bridge, disemboweled like rabbits. Dead animals left in a circle with their eyes gouged out. People hearing scratching on their car roofs while parked nearby. A deep voice whispering from beneath the bridge, "Get off my land." Of course, none of these stories were ever verified. No murders, no missing persons tied to the bridge, no confirmed occult activity. But the legend tripping was real. Local teens began daring each other to visit Bunnyman Bridge at night, some bringing Ouija boards, others bringing beer. Many report strange sounds, footsteps, growls, even glowing eyes in the woods. But more often, they report getting chased off by police. What's fascinating is how quickly a localized crime can spiral into living folklore. The Bunnyman isn't just a ghost story, he's become a kind of regional cryptid, part Cropsey, part Slenderman, part urban Bigfoot with an axe. And like all good legends, the more people tried to debunk it, the deeper the roots go. In 2002, Fairfax County archivist Brian Conley traced every known police record, newspaper article, and interview related to the Bunnyman. He confirmed the original reports, but found no connection to escaped inmates, train deaths, or murders. But that didn't stop the legend, because by then, the Bunnyman had taken on a life of his own. So what is it about a man in a bunny costume that unsettles us so deeply? Maybe it's the contrast. Rabbits are cute, harmless, innocent, and usually the prey and not the predator. But slap a bloody axe in that image, twist the smile a little, suddenly you've broken something. In the brain, in the culture. The Bunnyman legend exposes a tension we all carry. That beneath the calm surface of suburbia, something might be watching. And maybe it's not a monster from a fairy tale. Maybe it's a neighbor, a stranger, a man in a mask standing just at the edge of the woods. Coming up next, we dig into the possible real identity of the Bunnyman, examine whether a known suspect was ever identified, and explore what it says when true crime becomes folklore, and the folklore fights back. Because even if the Bunnyman was just a man once, he might not be anymore. Urban legends rarely start with real police reports, but the Bunnyman, he did. A man in a rabbit suit with a hatchet, seen twice in the span of 10 days, then never identified again. So, who was he? Let's look at some theories. Theory number 1, the local loner. The most mundane theory is also the most likely, that the Bunnyman was a local man, angry about developers or teenagers on his land, who dressed up to scare them off. The area where Bennett was attacked in 1970 was under heavy development. Fairfax County was growing. Old farmland was being turned into subdivisions. Tempers flared. And if you were angry enough to put on a costume, grab a hatchet, to make a point, maybe you only needed to do it twice to make your legend permanent. Problem? No one ever came forward, and no one was ever arrested, even with dozens of tips. You'd think that if this man had family or friends, that eventually word would have gotten out over the decades that followed. And yet, nothing. Theory number 2, mental health or PTSD. Bennett described the man as agitated, possibly unwell. Fairfax County at the time had limited mental health resources, and it's possible the Bunnyman was someone in crisis, acting out from trauma, paranoia, or delusion. But again, he disappears after 2 incidents. No escalating pattern, no second wave. Just silence. The third theory, fabricated folklore fuel. It's also possible that the second attack was a copycat, or never happened. The legend building machinery was already in motion. By the time of the second report, kids were already talking, and so were adults. Local teens may have added fuel, dressing up, telling stories, doing what legend trippers do. And once the Bunnyman entered oral folklore, it didn't matter what was real, because what people believed became the new reality. The Bunnyman might be the perfect example of how folklore forms in real time. 1 part verifiable event, 1 part communal fear, and 1 part narrative inertia. When people want something to be true so badly, it keeps showing up in the dark, just outside the frame. That's how legends work. They fill the blank spots on the map. Maybe the scariest thing about the Bunnyman isn't the axe, or the bridge, or the rabbits hanging from trees. It's the mask. Because once a person puts on a mask, we stop seeing them for who they are, and start seeing what we fear most. In 1970, maybe he was just a guy in a costume. But 50 years later, he's become something more. A story passed between teenagers at midnight. A whisper at the edge of the woods. A figure watching. Still out there. This has been From the Void. I'm your host, John Williamson. And the next time someone dares you to visit Bunnyman Bridge, maybe listen to your gut. Because some stories don't stay stories, they wait.